This little clip is going to be kind of like a recap of the concept of the blind contour. And part of the idea of the blind contour is that you really get as close as you can to an object with your eyes, that you focus your eyes on the edges of every surface that you can see, and especially paying attention, here I am, very close attention to the edges of the surfaces that you can see. And the idea here is to use your eyes to see and use your pencil to draw, but not to try to do both at the same time. And so the way this works, if you're doing it correctly, the first thing is to get your head in the right place, because we actually see with our brain, not our eyes. Our brain uses our eyes to see. This means that depending on the level of thinking and concentration that you do, the more you reach out with your eyes, with your brain looking through your eyes, the more you reach out to touch the surfaces, the edges of these surfaces, the better your results will be. Now, in order for us to get that, we will talk to you at the end of the discussion of touching the edges on how to proceed physically, how to set yourself up. Anyway, when I do a blind contour, what I am, or any contour, when I am drawing the contour of something, what I do is I have trained my brain to think of putting my pencil point, figure out where the camera is. There it is. It can't get in focus, but boy, this is one of my favorite kinds of pencils to do this kind of exercise with. I know there are people who disagree with me vehemently about that. At any rate, when I start one of these, I don't necessarily choose what I think is the most important. I typically choose what I consider to be the easiest contour to get to first. So with this, by the way, this is one of my favorite sneakers. With this cool sneaker, I've got, boy, you know, I got to tell you, and I'm interrupting myself, there's too much detail in here. You know, so the closer you are to this, the more detail you will pick up, the more bumps, the more nuances. You know, all right, so what I do is I reach out to the surface that I can see, and right now I'm playing a trick because I'm not really looking at the sneaker. I'm looking at the camera picture of the sneaker, but you're going to be looking directly at a shoe or a sneaker. Advice, if you really want to learn this, choose a sneaker like this, or a boot or something that's got laces, or something that's got a lot of edge detail, not printed detail, but edges, stitched on things and so forth. Anyway, I reach out with my pencil and touch the surface, and then I move slowly across that surface with the point of my pencil. And where I'm doing this is on paper, but my eye is looking at the surface and looking only at the surface of the sneaker, not on my paper. While I draw, I am here, I'll actually touch it. While I draw, I am not allowed to look at my paper. If I stop moving, I can look at my paper. The idea here is to look only at the sneaker. That way you trained yourself to actually use your eyes to see instead of deciding things. So the best analogies, when I teach this, the best analogies that I use are the idea that your pencil is actually reaching out and touching the surface. But even better than that, I think, is to pretend. I like to pretend that your pencil point is an ant traveling on a highway out in the desert somewhere that is heading towards mountains. And you discover these mountains one by one. And so I started that first surface that I drew was the top of the edge of my sneaker. And then after I got that, if it went behind something, I would have to find the next surface and decide a starting point on a new mountainside. And here's the point. The ant, if he was traveling on this, could not skip from this orange area, this light orange area, to the dark gray area, because that would be these, in a mountainside, this one, the lace, would be maybe 50 miles in front of the orange one. And so the ant can't do that. The ant, when it gets to the end of a path, it has to stop. So for instance, if I reach down here, it's a little disorienting. If I reach down here, there are surfaces that are on the inside of the tongue of the edge of the sneaker, and they are obscured by the laces that come across. Every one of these surfaces is a valid thing to draw and at the beginning of a point. So if I need to get a new starting point, I can look at my paper, I can find that starting point, put my pencil right on it and draw. But one of the other key ideas here is that you draw as slow as humanly possible, barely moving the pencil. The slower you go, the more you're able to concentrate only on that point where your pencil is. This is a practice of slow, deliberate concentration and keeping your focus on what you're looking at. Okay, in order to help you do that, one of the other things that I will tell you that you should do is draw like this. I take, for instance, a pad of paper, right? Let me see if I can get that so you can see it. I take a pad of paper and I have my drawing surface in here and I blind it. In other words, I let a sheet of paper, I turn the pad upside down, I let a sheet of paper fall down over this so that I cannot see it. Right now, I cannot see where my pencil is. And so if I were looking at my sneaker out ahead of me, I would not be able to look at my drawing at the same time. This is really important because we tend to draw a shorthand version of things. We tend to draw what we thought we saw or what we think we see, not what your eyes really, or what your brain is really seeing. We have shorthand for a lot of things because we have to decide things quickly, and you don't really observe. You know, no one walks, I hope, no one spends all day like looking at things this closely. If you did, you'd trip on something and fall or break your head against a wall or something because you'd be looking at your sneakers. This explains what happened to me when I was playing baseball as a kid. Because I was always looking down at my shadow and my sneakers, and I was fascinated by stuff. And the ball, once in a while, the ball would be hit by the batter and come and hit me in the head. It's not a way to get around in the world, and it's not a way to play baseball, but it's a fantastic way to learn how to see. Notice I didn't say learn how to draw. This, remember, I want you to remember this. This is an exercise. We'll do several of these, and you will find that your ability to perceive proportions and space and volume, items that I will explain as we go forward in the class, your perception will get better and better and better. People who discipline themselves to do this become very, very good draftspeople. By the way, this is your weekend assignment. Find one of your shoes, find a cool one. You know, if you pick a simpler shoe, you will get done sooner, right? But I got to tell you, if you really want to do one of these well, you should aim to have about an hour's worth of activity. Wow, an hour? Well, you know, when you look at something like this, I want to try to encourage you. When you're looking at anything in the world, you are looking at the world. You are learning how to observe anything else in the world based on one thing that you're looking at. And that's the shorthand version of that is you're trying to allow nature, you know, things that exist in the world, to be your teacher. And if I'm helping you find nature as your teacher, I'm doing the job that you hired me to do. Anyway, that's enough of that. Notice I'm trying to keep these down to shorter blabs. And I'll see you next time.